Hey YouTube, how's it going? Jujubear here. So you know what time it is, it's Tuesday, so time for another episode of Total War Tuesday where we play a best of 3 small funds mini tournament on any title from the Total War franchise. Now, today we're going to be playing Total War Rome 2. I'm going to jump into my replays here. I played 3 matches, small fun matches against a dude, don't know his name, don't know how to pronounce it. But he seemed like a good guy. But it seems like more and more often I am running into people who are new to the franchise. And I think a lot of that has to do with the new Spartan edition that just came out for Total War Rome 2. I think it's like $59 and you get the original game plus some extra DLC that comes on top of it. So it seems like a pretty good deal and it's attracting a lot of new people to the game, so we're probably going to see this more and more often. So for the first match, I brought Carthage along with me and my opponent's playing as Lusitani. I brought a couple of these Balearic Slingers. So I'm going to be, most of my killing power and killing potential is going to be in these Balearic Slingers. And I'm very glad that I brought them with me because playing against a faction like the Lusitani means that I'm going to need all of the skirmishing power that I can muster. Seeing as they do have low armor and usually fairly low missile block chance on a lot of these units, I can use these Balearic Slingers to my advantage quite well. So I was playing around with the weather effects as well, which is why it looks pretty weird. There's a sandstorm happening at the moment. I warned the guy before the match and he was cool with it, so what I've done is I brought a couple of these mercenary Iberian swordsmen. Excellent units for these small funds battles. They do have a lot of precursors. Very, very, very cheap. Half decent weapon attack, weapon damage, all that kind of stuff. So got 3 of them. On either flank I've got a late Libyan hoplite. Fairly cheap, I think it's like 300 talons, and they'll get the job done with any cavalry engagements. And I've got 2 Carthaginian cavalry, so hoping to run some hammer and anvils. And also I got a general's bodyguard over there. So my opponent has gone ahead and brought an Iberian cavalry. Very light, good at getting into skirmishes and wrecking them very quickly, but not really good at anything else. So I'm going to have to make sure he doesn't get anywhere near my Balearic Slingers with them. He's got a couple of Iberian swordsmen, 1 on each flank, a veteran shield warrior, and a Lusitani noble in the center, and 2 Iberian slingers. So my slingers will be able to make short work of his Iberian slingers, just due to their superiority. But it looks like at the moment I am targeting his veteran shield warrior, and you can see how quickly they are dropping there. Already down 20 men, and I've only taken a few shots at him. So these very lightly armored sword units are going to be, they're going to fall victim to enemy cav charges. So I've gone ahead and thrown my Carthaginian cavalry in there, and I've also had a pretty nice charge into these Iberian swordsmen. I lost a couple of men, I think it was like 2 over there. I did manage to lose a lot of those Carthaginian cav from his precursor volleys. But at this point I'm going to pull my Balearic Slingers back and engage this unit. It's almost down to half strength here. And you can see how it's a veteran shield warrior, a very expensive unit. So you don't really want them to eat too many jabs or fire. And you can see me just pouring the fire in here onto this veteran shield warrior. My Libyan hoplites are getting into his Iberian cav. That's exactly the kind of engagement they want to be in. This was a bit of a mistake here. Lusitani nobles get a very good jab toss into the back of my general's bodyguard. But I'm going to run a hammer and anvil into the back of this veteran shield warrior. And probably end up pulling it down in the end. And at the moment I've got my Balearic Slingers trained onto his Lusitani noble, and they're going to rip them to shreds. These guys just don't really stand a chance. It's into their unshielded flank. Though they do get a very good jab toss into these Iberian swordsmen over here. At this point I'm getting my own Carthaginian cav into his skirmishes. And he does bring over his Iberian cav. Now this is a very interesting fight. He did get a charge into my units. I did not. But I am fighting up against Iberian Slingers. Now we'll see how that plays out, but I was very surprised at the outcome here. He is going to chase my skirmishes. I'm going to get a nice charge back into the Lusitani nobles with my general's bodyguard. He has got his Iberian swordsman, so he kind of has taken a leaf, or a kind of like a good strategy for these small funds battles, and brought along a couple of Iberian swordsmen himself. So I'm going to pull over my own Iberian swordsman and start throwing some javelins into him. All the while I'm getting some fairly decent shots. Oh, where am I shooting at? I'm shooting at this veteran shield warrior, right. So it's got a double XP chevrons over there, 312 kills, fucking hell. That was real quick. So I'm hoping to pull down as many of those units as I can before I have to engage into combat with him. He does pop Raised Banner. Probably very good timing as well because his Iberian Swordsman's about to shatter. Though I do have my Let Libyan Hoplites into him and they are going to waver. So now that he's got Headhunt activated, these guys have an insane 74 melee attack. See, look over here. This is what I was talking about before. My Carthaginian cavalry getting pulled apart by his Iberian cav. I was very surprised to see this. Because I do have a bonus versus large, whereas he does not. But I guess it, yeah, I can't explain that. I don't know. I can't really figure out how that happened. So there are still a lot of enemy units left on the field. But fortunately for me, I've got a lot of jabs and I've got a lot of ammo left with my Balearic Slingers, crucially. And at this point, I am just firing... What am I firing into? At this point, I think I'm sacrificing my Let Libyan Hoplites. They're not going to survive this little engagement up against Lusitani nobles anyway, so I'm just going to pour the fire in, get a flank charge in, boom. And each time I do, I'm going to turn off fire at will and make sure I don't shoot my own general in the back or anything. At this point, I've just got my Iberian Swordsman getting some good jav shots in there, but he does bring his Iberian cav into my very lightly armored Iberian Swordsmen. They're probably not going to like that. But again, in extended melee, they should be able to deal with these Iberian cavalry. And it looks like they might be able to do it. So I'm going to bring my own General's Bodyguard in here just to deal with this Iberian cav once and for all, because it's done enough damage, I believe. And I've got one of my other Balearic Slingers over there just trained on his Lusitani noble. So yeah, eventually does crack. So that's game one, Jujubear. I think with the combined effort of my Balearic Slingers and cav charges, I was able to break a lot of his units. But this is insane, like 320 kills. What is that? He just absolutely destroyed a couple of my units very, very quickly there. So, frightening stuff. Anyway, game two. I'm going to bring myself the Nervii. I think I brought the Bodus... The unique general's ability. I can't remember what it entails, but we'll jump into it once we're into game. And my opponent brings Rome, which is probably one of the stronger factions in the game. Again, if anyone's watching this and they're new to the game, I'll try and explain some of the unit balances and what they're good at as I go. But for the most part, I'll probably breeze through it a lot of the time. So I've got Levy Freeman up the front, MLG Freeman. So called because they cost so little. I think it's 210 talents, and they can cause so much damage. They do have lots of precursor volleys, and I guess that's where most of their value comes. So they're light spear infantry. I got 3 of them. In these battles, these Total War Tuesday battles, the rules are that there's max of 3 of any unit, so it just stops people spamming incredibly strong units like the MLG Freeman. So I got 3 of them. I got 3 Celtic Warriors as my main kind of line. I've got 1 Oathsworn, and I've got 3 of these Germanic Scout Riders. Now these guys are excellent Jav Cav. I'm going to try and get around my opponent's flanks and throw some javelins into this Legionary Cav and his general as well. Hopefully, playing as Rome, most of his units are going to be, they're going to have an ability called Disciplined, which means if the general is killed, they can still hold out and finish the rest of the battle. So even if I do kill his general, it probably won't mean heaps, but it's just a good tactic overall to try. So I've got 2, so he's got 2 of these auxiliary and Syrian archers. Very good light missile infantry. That's probably where most of his killing potential is going to be in. And he's got a couple of these legionnaires. I think it was like 2 that were hidden in the forest there as well, so probably 4 all up. Legionary cavalry, fairly expensive cavalry unit, and not amazing or anything, but by Roman standards, it's probably the best they can bring. And he's also got I think it was like a general's bodyguard or a legatus or something. So I'm going to start forming up and surrounding. I presented a line. I don't have any skirmishes of my own, so what I'm going to do is rush my opponent here, just to give my opponent as little time as possible for his skirmishes to shoot into my men. So I just want to engage, and once I'm engaged, his own skirmishes won't be able to shoot me because he'll be shooting through his own men. So at this point, I'm shooting into his Germanic Scout Riders. I was actually hoping to get some good shots into his Legionary Cav, and I am managing to do it with this Germanic Scout Rider, but I'm taking a few shots from these Auxiliary Syrian Archers, so I'm going to pull back to the safety of the forest. And at this point, these Scout Riders are going to get some fairly good shots into these Legionary Cav as well. So we killed about 3 of them, done a fair bit of hit point damage. It's very important that we get rid of this unit, get rid of his mobility. Mobility will entail, you know, cavalry on the field, and we just want to make sure that we take that away from our opponent here. So what I'm going to do is pull back with my Levy Freeman and meet the charge of these Legionnaires with my Celtic Warriors. Now, I don't think these Legionary Cav had an attack order on my Celtic Warrior, and that's why this kind of diversion tactic will work out fairly well in most situations. So what I've used there is Force Concentration, which is a unique ability of my general's ability here called Bodognatus, I think it is. So Force Concentration will give you a unit extra attack, and you can see it's up to 39. It's not huge, but it's not bad at all. Bit of melee defense and a bit of base morale as well. So all across the line we have engaged. My Levy Freeman will not do very well against these Legionnaires. I was hoping to hold up his main line with my Celtic Warriors and get around the flanks with my Levy Freeman and shoot some precursors into his back. So you can see I'm getting some fairly good shots with my Jav Cav back here, my Germanic Scout Riders. And I'm getting some good volleys into him here as well. So I'm going to meet his Hastati. This is a bit more even, this kind of fight. Though my Celtic Warriors will lose in this kind of engagement. So all across the line, I'm not hoping to win. I was just kind of hoping to hold him up and shoot him in the back. Unfortunately, the way that it worked out, I should be wrapping this Levy Freeman around, but it's a little bit too far. So I'm going to have to engage after he destroyed my Celtic Warrior here. So at this point, I just have to deal with his archers. So what you're going to see me do is bring my Scout Riders into melee mode and just bowl them over. These guys are actually very good in melee combat, these auxiliary Syrian archers. So if left unchecked, they're actually going to be able to deal with my Scout Riders pretty handily. So I'm going to have to keep an eye on those guys. So they are breaking all of my Levy Freeman across the board. This is probably not what you want to do with your Levy Freeman. Which is like, you know, coming up against very strong sword cavalry, sword infantry. So at this point, I'm going to target his general as well. I did have to pull back with my Germanic Scout Rider because I was taking too many casualties. But at least we're keeping his skirmishers busy, which is what I want them to do. So these Oathsworn have got into the fight. Now these units here are going to be very, very strong in any fight. I've just used Fighting Spirit, which makes my units unbreakable for a time. This Celtic Warrior is down to 86 and it's being attacked in the rear, so it's fairly important that I do that early on. I am managing to break a couple of his units. I do get a rear charge with my Levy Freeman. Now this is what the Levy Freeman are meant for, support. So shooting people in the back, you know, doing rear charges, that kind of thing. They're not really meant for much else. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention I was hiding another Scout Rider in the trees over here. Bit of deception for your Tuesday there, huh? So I've just activated that unit, and I'm going to use the rest of its ammo just to destroy this General's Bodyguard, and hopefully destroy this Legionary Cav that we still haven't dealt with yet. So his skirmishes are all pretty much destroyed off the field. We just have to make sure we can deal with this big old blob of roving infantry. And I'm confident that we can do that with a combination of javelins in the back and rear charges from the rest of my cavalry. So my Oathsworn is taking some fairly hefty rear charges from his Legionary Cavalry. They're holding up quite well. I've put them into shield wall, so they'll do quite well against these Legionnaires. You can see their melee defense and armor has taken a boost because of that shield wall ability, and it gives them a bonus versus infantry as well, in case you're wondering. This Legionary Cav is being picked apart. Though it is being quite instrumental in these rear charges, he is doing the right thing, cycling in and out. So even though he was a new player, he had the right idea. He wasn't chasing my Scout Riders per se, so he kind of had a fairly good grasp on how the game works. So at this point, he has made this mistake, which is blobbing up all of his units. He is surrounding a couple of my units, but it's not really going to work out too well for him, especially since I have so much of these skirmishes surrounding the enemy here. So I'm going to get a nice little, cheeky little rear charge here. Now, his Germanic Scout Riders are very light missile cav, so they won't have a lot of mass to throw into this fight. But what they are doing is creating some attack in the rear penalties. So you can see they are breaking, or wavering, sorry. We're just going to have to keep on cycling in and out with my units doing this kind of thing. I think I left this Germanic Scout Rider in the fight for far too long here. But I think I was just kind of using it to serve as an anvil for my rear charges here. So this unit here is firing the rest of its javelins into the backs of these unsuspecting legionnaires. Down to 59 men. So they're in melee and they're losing this current combat. And you can see a lot of my units were able to weather the storm. My Sworn down to 108. Got 142 kills there. Pretty impressive stuff. This Levy Freeman, 85. My Germanic Scout Rider is doing a fairly good job. 154 on that one, and the other one got about 113 kills. And I'm going to seal the deal with this last little rear charge here. We just want to make sure we break the rest of these Legionnaires. It's Roman infantry, for anyone new to the game. Roman infantry is extremely strong because of their high morale. And, you know, fairly sturdy melee defense. So these guys, you could see there, like it took repeated rear charges, lots of different penalties, and the combination of all those different penalties was only then was it enough to destroy these Legionnaires. But you can see it wasn't before they got, you know, over 100 kills, 300 almost on that one. But my Germanic Scout Riders being instrumental in this fight, 113, 158. I probably didn't need to bring my Celtic Warriors so much. I probably could have brought extra skirmishes or something like that. But anyway, good battle to my opponent there. So 2 for 2 to Jujubear. And we're jumping into the third game here. So I'm playing as Baktria. My opponent's playing as Carthage. This was probably my most interesting build. I was getting a bit cocky here, so I went for all cav and skirmishes. I didn't bother with any infantry at all. So what I was going to do is just kite. And what kiting means in Rome 2, it means that with one unit, you kind of, with your skirmishes, you kind of shoot into the enemy, and then once they advance and get close enough, you run away. Because usually these skirmishes are very light. You can see there, my 2 Eastern Slingers here, very light units, and they're able to run away, and they're fairly quick actually, so they'll be able to outrun pretty much any enemy unit on the field. So I have brought 2 Eastern Slingers. I've got a Bactrian Royal Cavalry, very heavy shock cavalry. So I want to use them properly, and I've got a Bactrian Noble Horse, very inexpensive, very good cav. Bactrian Horse Archer, these guys are they're good utility units. If you save them for the late game, they can actually be pretty punishing on the charge, and we'll see what happens in this match actually. And I brought 2 of these Scythian Horse Archers. Very, very cheap Horse Archer units. So my opponent here has brought Carthaginian Cavalry, 2 of them, a General's Bodyguard, Mercenary Iberian Swordsman, where is he? So 2 of them, 2 Libyan Infantry. So he's got 3 Mercenary Iberian Swordsmen. So a fairly similar build to what I brought in the first match here. And a late Libyan Hoplites. So he's going to want to use his Hoplites to his advantage with their 30 bonus versus large. It's almost unheard of. Like 30 bonus versus large is massive. That's huge. So what I'm doing with my units is just walking them up. I'm going to start firing on a lot of his units at this point. My Bactrian Horse Archers are medium missile cavalry. So what I've been doing is just taking shots at this Carthaginian cav and pulling away wherever I have to. We are getting a few good hits on these Carthaginian cav, but as I said before, I'm just going to kite and pull back my Eastern Slingers. And I'm going to meet his cavalry head on with my own. Now, the Carthaginian cav is not too bad. It's actually quite good. But not when it's up against units like the Bactrian Royal Cavalry and Bactrian Noble Horse. He does thread the gap and pull through with his or take his General's Bodyguard through into my Eastern Slingers, so he did a very good job there. And I actually did get a really nice rear charge with my Bactrian Horse Archer. Now this is what I was talking about. I got 80 kills, 45 kills on this Mercenary Iberian Swordsman with a missile cav. Like, that's pretty insane. So we managed to finish off his cavalry on both sides, and I do have to pull out, but not before I take a horrendous amount of casualties from precursor javs. So my general is in a bad place at this point, not doing too well at all. And you're going to see another rear charge, are you? Yeah. So another rear charge from my Bactrian Horse Archers, doing a really great job there. Excellent utility units. So that's pretty much GG from my general. He's gone. He's off the field. My Scythian Horse Archers are just taking shots wherever they can. I think I'm targeting his Libyan Holpite here. just trying to take his spear units off the field. But the real danger here is these mercenary Iberian swordsmen. Now, they have lots of precursors, so I want to make sure I destroy them or make him expend them on useless units. So at this moment, I'm just using my Eastern Slingers to target a couple of his... I think I'm targeting these Libyan infantry at this point. Getting a few good kills. I really like this map, actually. It's nice. So, yeah, again, kiting. I'm just going to pull back and get a nice downhill charge with my Bactrian Noble Horse. I'll just catch this on cam here. I don't know why it slowed down there. So we bowled down an astonishing amount of troops there. Look at him, just taking a nap. So I'm going to pull back before they can react. And then I'm going to get my skirmisher units to continue firing into this little blob. So we got a fair number of kills. His late Libyan hoplites dying off pretty quickly from my skirmisher fire. My Scythian horse archers are able to finish off one of these mercenary Iberian swordsmen. My Bactrian horse archers are kind of struggling because I did send them in for another charge and they ended up getting a little bit wrecked. What I've done is separated my missile cav, so there's a couple on each side, so I can get some very good angles on the enemy units. And what that means is I'm aiming for this side of the unit. Bang, right there. So it's into their unshielded flank and it's also into their back. So the best unit to be attacking this Libyan infantry right now would be these Eastern Slingers. These are Scythian horse archers, even though they're getting shot to pieces, should be firing on these general bodyguards, and it looks like indeed they are, and they end up destroying it. I've got this Bactrian horse archer. What am I targeting? I should really be targeting this Libyan infantry. So it's all about getting the right angle on my opponent. I did get another nice charge in with my Bactrian Noble Horse. They're up to 120 kills at this point. A lot of them would be on these Libyan infantry. And it looks like we're getting a bit of a mass waiver because his troops aren't disciplined now. I was saying before about discipline, whenever you lose your general and your troops are disciplined, it doesn't really matter. But it looks like a lot of troops are not. These Libyan infantry are disciplined, so they're going to hold up for a fair bit longer, which is why they're actually still in the fight. But I'm going to get a nice little rear charge into his Libyan infantry with my own noble horse here. And it is a rear charge, so I'm going to bowl a lot of them over. And they aren't braced. So you can see they're dropping like flies down to 50 something. And again, I'm going to pull back before my opponent can react. And you can see these attack orders just coming from like fucking everywhere. A couple of my units were out of ammo, so they actually went into melee mode and charged in. So, whoa, that was not a good idea. So my two Scythian horse archers actually just ended up charging in, which is probably not a very good use of them. Because they are very light or light missile cavalry. So they got hardly any kills in that charge there. But I'm going to continue firing into this little blob with my own units. My Eastern Slinger is getting a fair number of kills, 102 there. And he's going to turn around and throw some jabs into my... Wow, that was intense. So he did get a jab toss in there. And this is... Precursors are super important in this game. You can see how that just absolutely devastated my own Bactrian Noble Horse unit. But it's a little bit too late now because I'm shooting him in the rear wherever I can. He doesn't know where to face. And this unit's kind of just... It's just too much for it. So I eventually bring my Scythian Horse Archer down and give it a recharge and it's GG. So 200 kills there from my Scythian Horse Archer. I didn't actually realize how well it was doing until looking at this later on. And the Bactrian Horse Archer is getting rid of a lot of his Iberian swordsmen. Yes, Bactrian Noble Horse doing some very nice downhill charges. So thanks for the game, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Jujubear signing up. Bye.